Okay, excellent. So welcome everyone. Thanks for joining. So we are a bit of ahead of schedule, which is good because yesterday we managed to approve a couple of things that we were supposed to do today. So that's good. Today we have an important session, which is the budget. So Kathy and our senior staff, they're going to be making a presentation. Then we will go into closed session to discuss a few of the details and in particular the financial details. And then we will be, coming back to the session which is open to observers basically. And then in the evening, we may do a bit of an agenda bash during the day, but then we have a couple of resolutions that we will have to approve as well. And we'll see how much discussions we need because we have discussed them extensively. So let's see if we have to go into executive session at some point. So we will go and play by the ear, so to speak. So without further ado, Kathy and Olaf is there.
Yeah. Everybody.
So please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
So just to be clear, so I'm going to be doing the floor control and the envelope timing, and you do.
That would be correct.
Excellent. Thank you.
Perfect. Is it?
You want to use this one or this one?
No, it's fine. Right? It's okay.
Okay.
Again, good morning from Singapore. It's a hazy morning here, but I actually saw the whole city line this morning. Some mornings we hadn't even seen that, so there's some beautiful air here. Thank you, Raul and Sally, for joining. They're still on Saturday night, if I'm not mistaken, right? And Wally, thank you for rising and shining again. Thank you. Here's how we're going to do this morning. I'm going to just say a couple of words of introduction. James will be the master of ceremonies here in terms of getting the report and all of its pieces on the table. You all have seen much of this, and I hope all of it, in our discussions along the way as we prepared for what is now the budget resolution connected to these programs. We have some more numbers today that some of you have asked for, and if you give us some time in the later session, we'll be able to work through those. Sandy will present the budget issues later in the presentation. This first presentation will be on the programmatic aspects of what we believe is a quite innovative plan. We've worked as a senior team for since April of last year to think very hard about how to bring the whole of the organization together. You see the sprawling nature of our regional efforts, some of which we believe, all of which we believe are worthy of time and energy. But we see a need to focus those energies on some big ideas so that we can produce actual outcomes that we say impact the world. So we've done a lot of thinking, not only about the idea of that, but how to organize around it. Both our people, our resources, and our budget, therefore, look slightly different this year than they've looked in the past. Because, in fact, we've innovated. Innovation takes some explanation, and I hope that we are doing our best to explain what it is we're trying to do. I can assure you we've put a lot of time and energy into this idea of campaigns, which you're going to hear about, that we believe is going to bear fruit. We believe we're going to need a little room. It's new for us as it is for you, but we've spent a lot of time and a lot of staff time thinking about how to actually execute on this. So we have a high level of surety that we can do what we're about to tell you we're going to do. Okay, so with that kind of intro, I'd like you to consider now how we're going to progress, and we're looking forward to a good conversation about that. Okay, over to you, James.
Thank you, Kathy, and good morning, everybody in the room and online. So I'm going to take you through the strategic thinking behind our 2018 action plan this morning, and as I do that, I'll ask various members of the senior team to come in and talk to various pieces of that. If we could go to the next slide, Kevin. We've set ourselves on a very clear path as an organization, and in many ways, the 2018 plan is a natural next step for us on that journey. And that road is taking us towards being a much more influential, a stronger, and more effective internet society. We've made large strides in becoming a different kind of organization to fit that model. And throughout, we've really been guided by two constants, or in one of the words that we like to use, invariants. One of those is our vision of an internet for everybody, everyone. And the other is our set of aspirations for ourselves as an organization, to be a champion for the internet, a leading voice, and a more powerful influence on what happens to the internet in the future. Next slide. We've built our direction on the understanding of the major challenges that face the internet in today's landscape. People's hopes and fears about the internet are dividing us and in terms of the future, and all of the opportunity that the internet brings is potentially at risk. There are concerns around the security and safety of life online, the misuse of connectivity, loss of data, impact on human rights, many trust issues that fall out of that. And there's also an unambiguous move towards what we think of as greater securitization of the internet, where security is less about personal data integrity and more about political control and national security. But in all of that, the promise of the internet of 25 years ago still holds true in our view. We believe in the values as an organization that are at our heart and in our DNA that have always underpinned the internet, and that we believe we need to use now to steer us towards a solution. So we need to be steadfast in those values and principles, upholding a view of the internet that is open, globally connected, trustworthy, transparent, and that has collaboration and inclusion at its heart. And while this may be our reference and is really the basis on which this and all of our action plans are built, we also believe that it's time for us to make a shift, to pivot as an organization, to demonstrate who we are, why people should join us, why they should listen to us, and so that we can rally supporters for the next 25 years and beyond. So above all, we need to work today to shape the internet we need for tomorrow. Next slide. And in that context, we've built our plan. We believe that 2018 is the right time for us as an organization, and the right time in the context of the internet landscape at large for us to address the issues in a more meaningful way. Now is the time for us to stand up and speak out for what we believe. And we'll do that in three main ways. These are the main pillars of our action plan. Firstly, we'll adopt a campaign approach, as you've just heard Kathy say, for specific outcomes. We want to make a difference in key areas. We'll work for a more united organization and community and bring the two together. And lastly, thirdly, we'll focus on new work that takes us towards our goals and that responds to the emerging threats around us. So these three things, these three pillars together, will advance us towards our vision and our objectives. And the purpose of this presentation now is to bring this thinking together and to show you that we're ready for that challenge. We are an organization in the context of a rapidly evolving and changing internet that is ready to act. So our action plan is just that. It's a plan for action. We're already working within the framework of our two key issues, access and trust. We're focused on connecting the unconnected and building and restoring trust in the internet as a force for good. We'll take an active role in those two areas by continuing to focus on security, connecting the hard-to-reach places on the planet, urging greater adoption and use of the multi-stakeholder model and governance as the way that decisions need to take shape and to happen. And each part of the organization will play a contributing role and an equally important role in bringing us towards our objectives and driving our advocacy towards those specific outcomes. So as we work to those outcomes, we'll keep our sights firmly on the future. We'll be globally integrated and connected as an organization, and we'll leverage our expertise across all of our disciplines. So our focus is action. Next slide. And to help us forward, we have what we need to succeed in that and to realize the aspirations that we have as an organization. We have a unifying narrative, a unifying message that embodies our purpose and that gives us a way to tie all of our activities together into a single story. We want to be an organization that plays a lead role in shaping the internet of tomorrow, and we want others to join us in that journey and to help and contribute to that effort, so this Shape Tomorrow idea is really our rally cry to both the community and to the world. And through it, we'll achieve consistency, we'll reach our communications objectives of being better known, better understood, and we'll achieve our broader strategic goals and objectives as an organization. Next slide. So advocacy and driving people towards those actions and bringing about change in the internet is at the heart of our plan. We're adopting the campaign methodology as our new way of working, and it is a shift. It is a change for us. It's a different approach, but it is the way that we'll achieve the outcomes that we want. And to talk more about how we will do that and what campaign thinking looks like and the real form that it takes in terms of our work, I'm going to turn to both Olaf and then Sally to take you through the next few slides.
Right, and I'm not going to look at the slides because that's all script. Just next slide, and then go by feeling where we are. Campaigns. Campaigns don't think of them as advertising.
Olaf, if you stand there, we cannot watch. Yeah, there. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, I stand here then.
Yeah.
Campaigns. Think of campaigns not as advertising, but as an organizing principle. As an organizing principle to organize the whole organization behind a set of ideas. Take yesterday. Yesterday you saw Raj presenting a large number of issues. Suppose you close your eyes and next year you stand there and Raj walks in and there are 4 things that he coherently reports on. And I walk in and there are 4 things that I coherently report on. And Sally walks in and there are 4 things that she coherently reports on. And those 4 things are the same things by which we use the talents in our organization to achieve an impact. That's the campaign way of working. That's not the only work that we will do in the organization, but it's an important aspect of doing the work. And we have started organizing the plan that we're presenting today already. And yesterday the question was, are you talking to the regional directors? That was a question to Raj. The regional directors are leading the implementations of these campaigns. Thereby they organize throughout the whole organizations with working groups. And we got much better integration of our work throughout the whole organization. So the campaigns are not, they are the way that you will hear us in the field, but they're also the way that we organize our work. That's new to the organization. It is a challenge, but we as the leadership all have our shoulders behind it and our thoughts, and I think that will work. So, 4 campaigns. IoT security, community network, working, what this says manners, you don't see that, but it really says it, and internet governance. 2 of these things are security related, and I'm going to dive into the security related ones. Just next slide. Trust and access are still the defining sort of properties behind these campaigns. And for trust, we rely on the work that we built over the last few years. The collaborative security theory and principle. That's an organizing principle of our messaging around all of our security work. the thinking about the frameworks, the trust framework that we've talked about previously. Still, as an organizing framework, to also select the opportunities that passed by while we were working on the campaign. 2, security campaigns. Securing the Internet of Things. That is an obvious thing that needs to happen. We've been talking about this yesterday in the context of the PIR meeting. It is clear there is no S of security in IoT. There's no P of privacy in IoT either. That needs to change. The way that we're going to approach that is by a principled approach. We've got a set of principles that have been developed by the Online Trust Alliance. I'll return to the Online Trust Alliance in a little bit. That is a set of 40 principles around security, about privacy, about supply chain management, and so on and so forth, with a focus on consumer devices. Retail things that you buy, in the shop for consumers, small offices, that type of stuff. That is our focus for this. We can talk about IoT in industrial environments, smart cities, but we've chose to focus and narrow it down because boiling the ocean is always a difficult thing. What we want to do with the framework, which was developed in the OTA, is actually broadening, making it more global. Try to find ways whereby using the principles, other organizations create the pressure in the environment to create economic incentives, to come to good policies, to do all those things. So we're thinking about interacting with consumer organizations, vendors, retailers, those type of things. Next slide. Manners is the second campaign that is security related. Actually, we call it strengthening the global routing system. You have heard us report about Manners over the last 2 years. The issue with Manners is that it's a difficult sell, and we haven't seen a rise in subscriptions. Basically, that is because we've been talking to our friends. We've been talking to the NOCs in our environments and, trying to create some incentives around that. Now, Manners in the operators community has been developed by the operators for the operators. But we want to give it a little bit more impulse, a little bit more knowledge. So in the campaign, we're looking at what are the different methodologies to reach out? What are the different ways that we can actually approach change the dynamics here? What if we get the enterprises requesting Manners? What if we get not the operators, but the CTOs of the network operators getting this on their radar? So looking at this at a very much different approach, putting Aisha in the loop as partnership development across the organization, giving it a fuller boost, thereby hopefully getting a better adoption of the principles and, as a result, a better security of the internet. Those are the 2 campaigns. A little bit further in the slide, and now I'm breaking script, sorry for my colleagues, but little bit further in the slides, we also talk about 4 initiatives that we're going to do. One of these initiatives is security related, and that's the OTA initiatives. As you know, we took on OTA, the Online Trust Alliance, last year. Or this year, actually, it's 2017. That is an initiative that we want to take forward. It's an interesting mechanism to interact with members, to get new perspectives, a different type of energy, and a different audience for messaging, a different way to interact with a community. And as I said, that might deliver very good stuff, like the IoT Trust Framework. So with that, I am going to hand back to James, I believe, or to Sally. Sally, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Just a quick sound check. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfectly well. Thank you.
Very good. Okay. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Next slide, please. So the third campaign that we are embarking on is one around ISOC's longstanding mission and goal to connect the unconnected. That's always been part of who we are. And as you well know, in the last year or so, we have started working in this community of community networks. And so we are going to deepen that work in 2018 and bring it together, as Olaf very nicely laid out, into a common kind of global approach to demonstrating to the world that there are innovative ways to connect the hardest to reach areas on Earth. We're going to use this model as a means to further extend the reach of the internet across the world and demonstrate that this is a model that can be replicated in communities around the world. We at ISOC know full well we're not going to connect everybody using this, but we can demonstrate how it works and hopefully inspire other communities to take similar action. We will have 3 flagship deployments in 2018. And some additional work that will be ongoing in the community network deployment space, where we are actually helping to do the physical connectivity. We will also be working on the policy frameworks to enable community networks to flourish. If there's anything we've learned this year in this process, it is that there is a real policy challenge for community networks in figuring out how to get access to spectrum, how to engage with regulators, how to work in a space that they frankly haven't been a part of. And there's a lot of help that I think ISOC can provide in that regard. And then also continuing to build the community of community networks through training, through capacity building, through the convening that ISOC is able to do. Because over the long term, we want this to be a sustainable model that others can carry forward. And I think importantly, I would say this aligns with the UN Sustainable Development Agenda, where they called on the world to connect the unconnected, the last billion, and this is perfectly aligned with that, and we think an important thing that ISOC can contribute to that. Next slide, please. And then finally, we will maintain and extend, I think, ISOC's long-standing expertise in promoting what we're calling collaborative governance, also known as multi-stakeholder approaches. As you've heard me say a number of times, this is a model that is under considerable pressure today in ways we would not have necessarily foreseen several years ago. And there's a real need for the Internet Society to step forward and continue to build momentum in this kind of decision-making for the Internet. We want to see governments at the national level actually adopt this in their policy development processes. It's time to move beyond getting references to multi-stakeholder governance in resolutions, and it's time to start seeing this implemented in real life. We are going to continue to work in the intergovernmental space with organizations like the G7, the G20, the ITU, which is more of a defensive environment, but to encourage engagement with stakeholders in internet policy development. And then finally, build momentum among our community to support this model, whether it's at the local level, the regional level, or the international conversation. And I am now turning it back, I believe, to James. Next slide.
Thank you, Sally. So there you have our 4 campaigns, which together represent our framework for advocacy. And that is, of course, our first major pillar of our 2018 plan. Strengthening our organization and community is the second of those pillars. And really the work there, if we move on to the next slide, Kevin, sits in 4 different buckets. We'll be focusing on what our members really need from us as we seek greater alignment between them and the organization, both globally and regionally. We'll continue to prioritize our communications to ensure that we are trusted and an influencer in our own right. We'll continue to support the programs that are core to us and to our DNA. And also, to help us advocate, we'll strengthen the regions and the work that they can do in the service of our campaigns around the world. To talk a little bit about that and other ways of working in our 2018 plan, I'm going to turn now to Raul.
Thank you, James. Hi, everybody. Please, next slide. As the colleagues have shown in past slides, we are taking this approach that is looking for more impact of our work. So if we are trying to produce a bigger impact, and at the same time being ready to deal with the emerging issues and new challenges, obviously we need to be more efficient. And in the sense of being more efficient, we need to review some of the things we do, the way that we do some of the things. We have built along the 25 years of the Internet Society plenty of partnerships. We have helped organizations to be created. We have consolidated organizations in the ecosystem. We have strengthened many of those partners organizations. It's time to take more advantage of those partners that are playing a key role in the community, and also looking for other partners to complement the work we do. In many cases, those partnerships will be the most efficient way to deal with some of the things we want to do in the community. Obviously, so one of the most important things is to work with our community, with our members, really to multiply the effect and to reach out a broader audience and to multiply the impact of the work. In that sense, we are thinking about chapters, individual members, organizational members, and also the IETF community. We are looking for really more quality of the work. This is the key for creating a bigger impact. Is prioritizing the quality over quantity. In some cases, they will come together. In some other cases, not. One of the things that's related to this concept is not a new approach, but is a refined approach to events. In two senses, as events where we participate, we need to participate in those events that are more aligned with our objectives, the objectives of our campaigns and our overall objectives. So we have to go, we have to be present in those places where really our voice is more important and is producing a bigger impact. Some of those events will be new events, new places that we have to show up and have play a leadership role. In the other sense is the events we organize. We always say, and probably you had already heard that from me, I think that I say that phrase in Nairobi, there is not glamour in providing coffee breaks to the community. The glamour is in providing contents, in leading the discussions, in bringing contents, bringing to be elaborated together with the community. So in some cases, we have to organize the meetings because this is important and we are the ones that are playing that role. In other cases, will be partners that we will be very glad to support. And that's, of course, we will phase out some projects, some activities. We will not drop anything that is really important for the community or for our mission. And if it is not granted, that there will be somebody else that will take responsibility on that. One example, for example, is the African Peering Forum. This is clearly there are organizations in the community that are ready to take some lead on that, but we are not just going away. We will continue spending resources, leading the organization, and trying to transition some of the things to those partners that are asking for take more responsibilities, or partners, as I said at the beginning, that we have helped to create and to consolidate in the ecosystem. Next slide, please. This is so, as I say, that's one of our objectives is working with our community for really taking advantage of this excellent community that we have around Internet Society for multiplying the effect of our work, the impact, and reaching out new audiences. And chapters are crucial for that. We will continue working with the chapters on things like Beyond the Net, organizing regional workshops, providing tools for supporting their work. We will continue with improving the performance measure. It is important to remark that since we started to work together with the chapters in defining the criteria for measuring the performance of the chapters, we moved from we had 41% of our chapters in categories A and B in 2016, and we moved to 60% of our chapters in category A and B in 2017. It is because now we are better positioned to know what are the problems that the chapters are facing and how we can help them to address those problems. And also is clearly a motivation for the chapters to perform better and to be recognized by that. There are other things that are not necessarily related to the chapters, but of course chapters are also present on those activities, things that we will continue doing, even if they are not necessarily, maybe yes, maybe not necessarily linked to the campaigns. But there are many other things, as I said before, that we will continue doing. Obviously, keeping the focus, keeping our priority on the campaigns we have defined, being consistent with that. Those are the priorities we defined, and this is what we will have in mind every day when we work in 2018. But we will continue, obviously, assuming our responsibility on many other things. So we will continue working on IXPs and interconnection in general in every region. We are seeing a lot of opportunities in new countries, new opportunities in Middle East, even in North America, opportunities for working in locations like Alaska, for example, and continue working with all the community we have developed and we have supported in every region. The community forums, I sent an email to you the last a few days ago about the community forum we are organizing for Q4. This is an excellent tool that we will continue using in next year, and we will continue supporting organizations and activities, initiatives in every regions. The network operator groups is just one example of that. And of course, we will keep our fellowship programs that are a source of legitimacy and recognition for ISOC for the impact that they are creating. And by the way, that now in the Q4, we will be seeing some of those fellowship programs in action, some of those that are really getting recognition, like the IGF ambassadors of youth at IGF, that are some of the fellowship programs we plan to continue, like the IETF policy programs and IETF Tech Fellows. So, James, back to you.
Thank you, Raul. Ashley, we're going to transition over to Todd to talk about membership and fundraising. Todd.
Thank you, James. I think it's a good jumping point. Next slide, please, Kevin. It's a good jumping point from what Raul was speaking about in terms of the chapters. This slide obviously combines a few things. Our organization members, as many of you know, are a key source of funding to the organization, but just as importantly, they also give Internet Society legitimacy and depth in our community. And as the slide states, what we found is we need to better align ourselves with those organizations. So the fundraising and membership teams are working to review our org membership status and structure, including the benefits, the fees, and most importantly, our interaction with the org members for 2018. This matches, it's not a divestiture from our fundraising strategy of focusing more on those org members, corporate sponsorships, and individual donations. In all cases, we need to work to show the value of being a member. And I think that this is one of the main pieces that when we come back with this plan to you, you'll see that we heard from the org member community was this alignment and working together to better have outcomes. We want to make sure that we're more inclusive for members and potential members in different areas across the globe. That includes industries, regions, different areas, developing countries, but also not to devalue those benefits for all by discounting too much. So our plan is forthcoming on that. I was hoping that we would have more to show today in terms of the actual details, but obviously that's for another time. We've been doing quite a lot of work around this area of organization and individual membership. As noted, we are in the process of evaluating new data received through one-to-one conversations. We didn't just send out a survey, we actually called org members and spent hour and a half of time with over 40% of our org members, including new OTA members and a few past organization members who have left the organization, and talk to them about what we might be able to do better and how we can bring them back into the fold if they want to. We learned a lot, and we're working diligently to take what they said, to turn that into a program of benefits and structures that meets more their needs. I can tell you the main thing that we saw out of that conversation really had to do with delivering our content, getting them involved with what we're doing as an organization, pulling the org members in a little sooner in the process. So we want to build a program around that. Additionally, we're looking to diversify fundraising. So we've talked about that quite a bit. I know that's been a topic at the board level for a while. One of the ways we're doing so, and we have a lot more things we want to bring forward, is an individual donation campaign experiment. This hasn't been done at ISOC in quite a few years, and we want to give it a try. I believe we have a very professional fundraising team that has experience and abilities from past places they've worked, and I think this is a good opportunity and time to test. And I want to underscore the word test and underscore the word experiment, to try these things. And not just about whether our folks will respond, but the processes, the mechanisms, the tools, the messaging, the way we go about that, try to be a bit better and a bit more professional. Our campaign is scheduled to go out November 28th. We've been working quite diligently on this. We have had, over the last 10 days or so, as many of you have seen, some feedback from the chapter community, and we will be engaging that community as much as they want, and probably more than they want, in the next few days, to make sure that we're aligned in what we're looking for there. We're looking forward to better understand how we can do these things. So again, I want to underscore the test. I think that we need to continue the engagement, and I say continue. I think that the Internet Society currently has plenty of content. Sally's team, Raul's team, Olaf's team, the programmatic areas of the organization create great content and great capabilities for our members. We need to get it in their hands more efficiently and more effectively, and we will be working on that in terms of our care and feeding, as we're calling it, of our membership, both organizational and individual. Next slide, please. So kind of flipping the other side of the work that I'm involved in at Internet Society, we need to continue some work on key technology systems. As most of you know, we are coming to the end of what we've called our 3-year technology improvement plan, where we took on about 18 projects over the last 3 years with the body of funding that the board back then approved. We've been very successful in delivering quite a few of those. One of the key tenets of that particular project or that program was to allow us to shift as the business needs shifted, and we were able to do that, and I think we've had some really good outcomes from that. But we have some more work to do. Obviously, always more work to do. There's some key technology systems that now need our attention. The first is the AMS, the Association Management System, or better known as Aptify. Folks, obviously that AMS has been one of those tools that's brought some contention between us and the organization and the community. But also, additionally, it's very interesting to say that our staff has found that current system to be cumbersome as well. And we have, we've kind of come to the end of that road. We've come to the end of the place where we cannot just continue to get by with it. So one of the main projects we're going to work on in 2018 is to replace that system. We've done a great amount of work of reviewing it in 2017. We have process plans built out. We've documented a lot of the ways that the Internet Society uses those types of tools, and we want to forklift it. I don't know if you're having any nightmares over there, Hans-Peter, from the last time this happened 10 years ago. But it is time. It's time for this to move on and put ourselves together a modern, secure, accessible, and usable system that can be utilized by all. So we'll take that on. Secondly, we also need to, with Sandy's new leadership in the financial roles at the organization, we need a bedrock for our financial systems as well. So Sandy is already leading a team to look at what the possibilities are out there and replace that system as well during the next year. And then thirdly, and I think this will be kind of my handoff back over to James, as you know, we've rolled out our new website to a lot of great feedback. We've had some ups and downs, roller coaster on it, but as you do when you have these things. But the website was really the public version of our content curation initiative that we've been working on for several years. And that idea is that we need to put the content where it needs to be. We need to know the audiences and make sure that we get it where it needs to be. While that's been going on, we've also been quietly building out an intranet over the last 2 or 3 years with specific functionality that meets the needs of the internal staff. In 2017, we rolled out 2 extra pieces of that, one of which is a document library, as we call it, for the final version of the truth, or at least today's final version of the truth. You know, these things evolve. We've done pretty well with that. We still have work to do, getting folks to use it, to put things in it, but that always comes when you have a new tool. But we built that system over 2 or 3 years, like we did with everything else in our standard of using Drupal. And not to get into the technology, but we've built a new website in a different technology in WordPress, and we want to align those things. We want to try to make sure that we bring those things together as purposely as possible so that we can be efficient. So we will spend some time continuing to develop in that intranet, but also to move it over to WordPress so that we're aligned and our technology teams can work better with that. So I think to pull all of that together, I believe that this last project lies in that same strategy of being better with our content, making sure that we can find it and making sure that people can utilize that. And I believe that dovetails, quite nicely over to what James and his team have planned going forward on the website and the content curation there. So I'll hand it back to you, James.
Thank you, Todd.
So can I just stick one question in here?
Yes, sir.
Historically, we have had problems with fundraising for individuals and chapters and org members in the IETF stepping on each other, and which I'm sure you saw a lot of free and frank discussion about that with the chapters. And I just wondered if you can say a little bit more about how you're planning to make sure we don't do that in the future.
Well, it's a good juggling act. I could say that. I think so. Historically speaking, some of the areas where we've kind of stepped all over that is not having clear purpose and clear communication between those who are going out and looking for things. You go into a company, you sit down and I could sell you on anything. I can sell you on IETF. I can sell you on Internet Society. And we haven't been focused in our purpose is the way I look at it. Gonzalo and I have had great conversations about, we go into the technology teams in a company and talk about IETF, but that's all we talk to. We don't move over to the corporate responsibility areas and talk about how they might be aligned in what we do with the Internet Society. John, I think a lot of this is that's the corporate side, and I think we're going to focus more on the total picture of how we can work with these organizations. Chapters, individual members, this is something that we're testing. I can't underscore that enough. I think that we haven't, we only have 40%, or there's only 60% of individual members who are in chapters. I think that there's opportunity there to do a lot of things, including do membership drives, try to get folks into those chapters. We all know that the legitimacy and that the work that is done most importantly, but very importantly, at the local level in the chapters, and we can help to move that forward. But I think the main thing is that we're paying attention and trying to test a few things. And there's going to be some things that fail, we'll pull back from. We won't continue to step on ourselves. But again, it's a test. It's work in progress. So I hope to come back whenever the next board meeting is, March or so, and give you a better detail of how we did it, what we were good at, what we were bad at, and what we learned along the way.
Yeah, and to be clear, I mean, I'm very happy that we are addressing individual members now, and we are giving them some love, because we didn't do that in the past. As everybody knows, sometimes they were actually unable to even, provide money to ISOC because, there was no channels. We've been talking about, for example, now with the revision of the mission statements, how to actually connect to that community. So I think any effort in that respect is really good. Obviously, we want to, clarify interactions and where, people may not understand the efforts, but I think it's really good that we are working in that area. Very happy to see that.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to quickly address the external elements of the previous slide. Actually, Kevin, if you just go back, we haven't moved on quite yet. Almost 3 years ago, the board, as it was then, outlined a strategic direction for us to take through our communications, using our identity as the key to become better known, extend our sphere of influence, and be more of a force in the world. I think we've come a long way in that. I don't want to go into all the detail there, but there's a lot of value now in our communications ability that delivers awareness. Many more people now know of the work of the Internet Society and what we do and our role in the world. We are becoming an influencer in our own right. You heard Raj yesterday talk about how media are now coming to us for comment and opinion. Our views are being sought out, and we're creating much more credibility and trust beyond our known community of internet influencers. So we're really moving into a sphere where communications is strengthened, and this is going to be hugely important as we go into campaign mode and as we use communications to engage and drive people to action. Just this week, as an example, I heard a story that came about here in Singapore, actually through the work that Jane Coffin has been doing with the Mexican chapter, Luis, and through the IRTF, the Internet Research Task Force, and Gaia, the Global Alliance for Internet Access. The Singaporean ambassador to Mexico had seen much of the media coverage about the work that Luis and the Internet Society had been doing in Mexico in the wake of the earthquake there, and asked for a meeting with him, and they sat down and had a very good conversation. So that's a great example of the kind of connection that we are able to make that helps us towards our objectives, but that comes from visibility and media engagement and reach. So these things are having a real impact, and I think as we move into our campaign work, it's going to be crucial that we maintain the value in our communications, and that we also build new kinds of communications to fit that model and that drive people to action. So the challenge really now is to fulfill the promise in the brand and the identity that we've built by producing outputs that are in fact worthy of the Internet Society name. So moving on to the next slide. All of that will happen at the same time as the work that we will continue to do for some of the core things that we have traditionally worked on as the Internet Society, and that will not change. So we will continue to focus on our support for the IETF. That is a big part of our work. We are integrally linked to the IETF, and that will continue to be the case. I've seen firsthand the value of the Internet Hall of Fame for the internet ecosystem and all the people who are in it myself, having had the pleasure of hosting the ceremony this year in Los Angeles. We've seen the John B. Postel Award, Service Award delivered or given this week. And again, it's clear that we hold a very unique place in the minds of people in this particular community, in the IETF as well, in terms of that reward. It's something that links us and our present day work to our heritage and where we've come from. But looking forward, and in the spirit of shaping tomorrow, we're going to be focused more on engaging with new audiences, and that includes the youth, young people, through programs like our 25 Under 25 and others. So there'll be more of an effort to drive that forward. Next slide. Our third pillar, and I'm going to turn to Kathy here, we want to talk a little bit about those new initiatives that we're now able to think about as we move into the future.
Thank you, James. So with all of that that's on the table, why would you think about new things? Because you have to, in my view. But the way we should think about them is a little differently. Instead of immediately saying, okay, let's put this in the plan, and everybody jump on, there's a notion here, and we've talked about it a lot, about incubation. Let's see. Kind of a, let's try. Let's see. Let's see if this is the next thing we ought to be doing. And in that respect, I've talked to you about the three things that I'll discuss now. One, next slide, is the, sorry, go to the next slide. Three things that we will talk to you about today is one, the Online Trust Alliance, which Olaf just discussed with you. We think there's a lot of promise here. It's still early. We're still having some growing pains, but I like the idea that we know that we're still trying to work this thing through, and that it's going to take some adjustment on both sides. And we're going to give it another year and see, hopefully by the next time we come back, it may well have gone right into the fabric of what we're doing. But let's see. The second is this multi-stakeholder project, which I've talked to you about, in which you can see how it directly enhances what we're doing in the campaign. So on the one hand, the focus of the campaign is to finally get the governments off their keisters and say, yes, indeed, we're going to reform some of our processes and bring in the stakeholder community for actual decision making, and not just for some sort of window dressing consult. At that same time, there's so many things that really should not be the purview of government saying, we'll decide this for you, but we need to keep deciding for ourselves in the community various hot topics. One thing you saw this week, which was kind of nice, when Brian is looking for a place, it's kind of interesting. He got stymied in whether he could actually mount some sort of multi-stakeholder process to deal with the issues he wants to deal with. We've been talking about how these things could work, and that this could be a kind of, by getting the platform in place, people like that can come and say, can we use this platform, and can this convening start to happen? Interestingly, in the conversations we've been having now around the world, there are at least 2 other organizations that have said, let us know when you're up and running, because we think this is something we can use. That's true. At the same time, we have to decide, see whether it actually will take hold, and whether it's replicable, and whether it can be done for the price, et cetera, et cetera. I would make this mark that, interestingly, again, it's not clear to me that we would have to fund each of these. It may well be that there's funding available, and I think there will be, from the very organizations who would like to use the platform. So I'm hopeful that this is a good start, a good incubation that we ought to move forward on. And the third has to do with this civil society capacity building that you heard from PIR about. This is very early days. We're still trying to figure out, how do we take what our partners at PIR are concerned about and mesh it with what we're concerned about, which is greater engagement by civil society in those campaigns and in that work we're doing in the community. It is true that there's capacity building that needs to happen. We are of the view that it usually happens, or it many times happens, for organizations when they want to do something, when they want to engage and they don't have the tools, or they understand that there's better ways to do it and are motivated then to spend the time going and doing the training. That if you just drop it in and say, there it is out there, go do it, people are busy. So our strategy here is to combine this idea of bringing more people into engagement. We call it the community. The community is civil society, but there is also folks who are organized that we could bring into our engagement that would be helpful to what we are doing, and actually allow them to do some capacity building. So those are the 3 things that we are talking about, trying to get off the ground this year. And we'll be talking more about that as we go forward into the budget discussion. Okay. Last slide.
We have one more slide, yes. So this has been our 25th year. It feels as though it's been a milestone year in many ways. It's been a year when our past, our present, and our future have come together. We've accomplished a lot, and it's also a staging post for where we go next as an organization. We've relaunched ourselves onto the global stage, and we've taken the time to think about what more we can do to deliver an internet for everyone. This action plan, our 2018 action plan, is a very concrete stepping stone towards that vision. I believe it sets us up nicely to be ready for the next 25 years. And just to remind ourselves about what we've gone through and what we've experienced and what we've enjoyed and where we've succeeded, we wanted to play you a highlight reel for some of the things that you may recognize from this year. It'll take just a moment to cue the video up. It's my pleasure this evening to welcome you all to our 25th anniversary celebration dinner.
The Internet Society supports many programs that help young people build their skills and to make sure your voices are heard in the important conversations about the Internet.
We announced that the Internet Society would open its doors in January of 1992. The big issue now is how to make sure that the Internet stays accessible, stays affordable, continues to grow, and that's why all of you are important.
We're passing on the cloak of responsibility, creativity, and, if you will, fun of driving the Internet, because it's those young folks that are going to determine the legacy and the direction of this upcoming Internet.
You are from every place in the world, and you have developed and nurtured and grown the Internet and done very many different things to have that happen.
For someone like me, if I didn't know about the Internet, I wouldn't have been able to execute my ideas and make it happen.
There's a huge portion of the population that now has access to the Internet. Moving forward, I think just building community, being able to connect with those that have pioneered the Internet or those that have set the foundations, and being able to use their expertise and advice for us to amplify what we are doing.
I'm super honored to be here, and I couldn't have thought I would ever make it. So I really hope this provides a chance for people to move forward and to have an opportunity to give back to their society as much as I want to do.
We cannot forget about the billions who are not yet online. And of course, we're all working together to change that, including some of our Internet Hall of Famers and our 25 under 25 awardees today.
If we care about values like openness or human rights and free expression, we cannot take those things for granted today if we want the Internet of the future for tomorrow.
So of all the reports that the Internet Society has published, this is undoubtedly the most far-reaching, because it was for more than a year that people, thousands of people from more than 100 countries, were contacted for their opinions and their analyses about what they thought was going to happen to the Internet of the future and how they could affect change in that future.
It's fantastic. Not a lot of organizations get to be 25 years old and are still as effective and revered as the Internet Society is. The Internet is going to become much more critical and important to our daily lives. It will be a utility that we depend on, that we think is very important to every aspect of our daily lives, keeping us on track, keeping our airline reservations, helping with the education of our children. And the Internet Society is the one organization that really helps to provide that worldwide.
What we have witnessed over the last 25 years has just been a discovery. I think every day there is something new that we have seen.
There's enormous amounts of beneficial social work that can be accomplished using Internet technology and Internet applications.
The Internet Society founded the Internet Hall of Fame in 2012 as a recognition program that honors Internet visionaries and innovators.
To tonight's honorees, I want to say thank you. You have helped change the world for the better, and you inspire the next generation of visionaries to do the same.
While we were working on something that was big and was going to change the world, I don't think anybody back then really knew how much it was going to change.
In each country and in each troubled time, it is time to rearticulate the future, to pass the baton on, and to rest assured that an eager and enthusiastic generation will take on. And that's basically what we are doing.
We're here to celebrate the 25th anniversary, and this was a magnificent start to what is going to be a worldwide conversation that we're about to kick off. We call it intercommunity. It is our effort to use the internet to bring our community, the internet society, together. As we say, using the internet for the internet, by the internet.
Everything the Internet Society is doing with respect to youth and really featuring youth is so critical.
What we are doing into the future, we have the vision of ISOC, we have what we call mission. I want people to live that, to feel this is my mission, this is what we are doing.
You are the future, and the future is now. I hope you feel as good as we all do about what a milestone that was for us, and how it actually shifted perceptions of some of our elders, and that was what was very exciting to me. We got some comments back that just warmed your heart about how, my gosh, you know, I look back now these 25 years and I meet these kids, and now I know that this was really important. And so thank you for the time. Gonzalo, thank you to our amazing senior staff. I think you just demonstrated the kind of expertise and commitment that has really turned this organization, I think, into a platform for some very dynamic future growth. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you for all the presentations. They were very good. I think it's probably like 2 years ago already, or 1 year and something ago, when we were setting the direction of basically focusing on impact and also on articulating what we're doing. And I'm happy that everything basically is presented along those lines, and that we are taking that into account. Also, regarding how we measure success or failure. So in that sense, and not obviously at this level, but when we go into the details of the programs, we would obviously like to see that. Also regarding new initiatives, the framework we are looking at now is for test, experiments, whatever you want to call it, which is basically the same thing. We start small, we see what works, we see what doesn't, we double down on what works, we basically pull the plug on what doesn't. So in that sense, I think we are very well aligned. I liked all the presentations, and I would like to open the mic now for questions before we go into the executive session to see the financials. So any comments, questions? So Hans-Peter, then Olga.
Okay, first, thank you. I really liked the presentation, and I'm really happy to see all the enthusiasm, all the spirit coming together and to this supporting those goals which are our common goals. I really think it's great to see this, and got part of this feeling already in September in Los Angeles, but it's really summarized very nicely in this presentation and also in this video showing some highlights. One different small point, I was listening to the presentation and checking my short list of abbreviations or of topics if they come up, and I only missed 2 of them. And I would like to ask if they are now on the list of abandoned or lost projects, and these are the OMAC, the Organizational Members Advisory Council, and the Chapters Advisory Council. Those were not mentioned, even if there was a lot of focus on chapters and outreach and organizational members.
Raul, please.
Yes, I don't. We didn't mention that as a specific things because they are not new projects. That's is the only thing. That's the Chapter Advisory Council is really important for us. We are spending a lot of energies. In fact, and also related to John's question before, we will have a discussion with them in the next Monday about the fundraising thing, as we do with everything. We will continue supporting that, and we expect that they not only support that, but also receive feedbacks and to enrich our programs and discussions in general from Chapter Advisory Council. So as Todd can speak about the organizational members.
Yeah, thanks, Raul. Agreed. It's not something we look to do away with. We look to strengthen. We look to take a serious look at what we got in our feedback from organizational members and how they want to be more involved and how we can deliver an experience for them and a partnership with them to strengthen the organization. So I think Raul said it nicely. We didn't say it because we don't see that going away. We are looking to strengthen. So, you know, a small omission maybe there, but we do look to keep that organization going and figure out how, if there's some evolution to be done in that as well, Hans-Peter.
Thanks. That's exactly the answer I expected. And yes, it's only to mention them makes them also feel included and proud.
And to be clear, I mean, they were both advisory councils, as usual, invited to provide the report. So both of them declined because they are looking for new leadership, getting their act together and seeing how, you know, they move into the future. So in that sense, that's why we didn't have the reports today. We were talking to both, both ACs basically, and until the last minute, they were thinking whether they could put together a report, but they chose to basically, regroup and basically, get back to us. And we are working a few recommendations from them. So I think, yeah, we are on the same page with them. Olga was next.
Good night, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for the presentation. I liked it very much. This concept of campaigns and focus, I think it's it can make a real difference in the next future. I have a question, and I would like to stress the fact that was mentioned by Raul about the categorization of chapters. I think that has really enhanced the organization of the chapters and on their inside, because they are trying to improve. They're trying to get a better category. They are trying to be more formal, which I think it's a very, very good thing for all the chapters. So very good with that. I have a question about the special interest groups. I see that there are a lot of new initiatives focusing on women, cybersecurity, Internet of Things, blockchain, and I think that is good. My question is, how are they formalized, if there is a way that they should be formalized? Because I don't know, maybe you have seen that in the list, they are requesting to have voting rights for selecting members of the leadership or funds, or so they are trying to have their space in the ISOC ecosystem, which is good, but I would like to know how are they going to be formalized, and if there could be also having this categorization or rules that the chapters are abide by. Thank you.
Let me take this to start, Raul, then you come back. So I think about a year or two ago, we said this is a good thing because we saw people wanting to talk across kind of boundaries about topics. But I think Olga is exactly right that as people become more organized, they decide they want to be somebody, and then who are they? The original thought was people would go back into their chapters, right, and take the learning or whatever, but you're seeing what happens. There's an interest group there. I'm going to let Raul comment on this, but I do think it may be something that has to come to the board level at some point. Raul.
Yes, as you say, Kathy, at some point we decided, if you remember, before we had just chapters, regional chapters and thematic chapters, and that was confusing. And so we decided to separate that, to have chapters and a special interest group for thematic groups. And it was decided that those groups will not have voting rights. In fact, mainly because in most of cases they are formed by members that are also members of chapters. And that was a decision that was taken at the moment, discussed in the board. I don't see, or we don't see at this moment, any reason for reviewing that. But of course, that would be open to have the discussion. And with regard to the formalization, yes, they have to follow rules. There are procedures in place, and that we are following that, respected, and they will be categorized too. Starting this year, we will include them in the categorization of the measuring performance of the groups. And there is, I think that there is, you didn't mention that, Olga, but I'm sure you have it also in mind. There is, yes, a challenge that is to have more integration between our work in different areas and the work of the special interest groups, because we have more, it's exceed our expectations. We never thought that there would be so much interest in forming this kind of groups, so we need to integrate better in terms of discussing positions, policy positions, in the same way that we follow processes for consulting our community on policy brief, for example. It would be also good that we the organizational members, other bodies like Chapter Advisory Council, or even the staff have also the opportunity to provide inputs when they discuss things. So we need to discuss some things, improvements on this matter, but everything I think is going well and in the right direction, but it requires, yes, permanent work for improving. And we are very happy. It's great that we have those groups.
Something else, Olga, or?
Just a clarification. I never meant it's not good. I just
to
wanted to understand the formalities, only that.
Oh, yeah, yes. I just added that. I never implied that. Sorry.
Okay, so the queue is Hiroshi, Haris, and I don't know if Desiree wanted. No, so. Okay, so, well, Hiroshi was first actually, so Hiroshi, Glenn, and Haris.
Okay, thank you. The presentation is pretty good. To clarify, emphasize the direction and the issues we are facing to and we are going to do. Then when we think about this cybersecurity, that is very hard task to realize or make it. So that is why I sent some messages about the that would be related with a multi-stakeholder discussion, not only about technological solution cannot solve the problem. I mean, I think we should recognize who is the key stakeholder to make a decision, to make an investment into the deployment and the research on security as a practical sense. So that could be included into the multi-stakeholder discussion about how making a practical deployment of the cybersecurity investment and implementation, because we need the money. They need the money. So they need a very high level CEO or CFO level decision making. How we supporting their decision based on the technical proof is the important thing. So I believe, and also I'm happy to involve in such a discussion. Not only about technological proof, but also making a more larger deployment plan.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, and Todd touched about that as well. Like we need to understand who do we need to talk to. It's not just that we have our old friend and we always talk to them. We need to basically establish new channels and think about that. So yeah, thanks, Hiroshi. Really good point. It was Glenn, please.
Thank you, Hitachi. You made a really good point. I think the message needs to be targeted rather than just a shotgun approach. Excellent presentation. Fantastic job. It was succinct. It was well executed. I got a couple of comments, though. It started off with Shape Tomorrow. A few years ago, we had a slogan, Internet Strong, and I guess what it is I'm assuming that this slogan, this term, is going to be around longer than Internet Strong, right? So because the other one didn't last very long. So I assume this is a long-term slogan. Okay, so you also started off with the word advocacy, and correct me if I'm wrong, ISOC is a charity status? Right, okay.
Yes.
Because I think there's, and I don't know about the US rules, but I think there's certain rules as a charity and advocacy, but everything— So
Glenn, the term is 503.
Yes, but I'm just saying that there is this walk you have to do on what you can and can't do. So, but what I saw in all the campaigns, it didn't seem to me that it was violating those rules. But what I saw was the comes to mind, and Olaf mentioned manners, and I went through a session on manners, and I saw a blank look on everybody in the room because I don't think they made a connection. So when I talked to Steve and gang, I said it's a natural thing for cybersecurity in the grid, the electrical grid. That's what I mean by targeted messages, getting to those people that OPA compliance issues. So I've sent them a couple of videos we did with IEEE on cybersecurity in the grid. So I think that's a very important targeted market. The other thing that you were talking about is, with the OTA, is I'm wondering, being Dutch yourself, the GCFE, how that competes with you in terms of, or you're taking the same kind of market sector, because that's funded by the Dutch government. The thing about what Sally was talking about on collaborative governance, I really think there's a gap there on civil engagement on the bottom level. And we were talking about the high level government people, but I think on the bottom level, that municipal government level, those civic engagement, that's where people can have the biggest impact on their community on the municipal level. So maybe it was ignored or implied, I'm not sure, but I think we need to think about how to drill down to the municipalities, and there's associations of municipalities that we might want to target the message. Campaign concept, I think it's great. And you mentioned, I don't know who mentioned about visiting other events rather than just talking to ourselves. The one thing, I've mentioned this before, IEEE has something called a Global Humanitarian Technology Conference. It's ideal. Many of us have been doing, Haresh and I have been exchanging stuff on disaster planning and technology. A great example of a conference, and IEEE has conferences around the world, so it's something we should consider looking into. And my last comment on membership, as you saw, Todd, there was a bunch of backlash from the membership on the idea, so I think it was not articulated well to the membership, and I think you pull that back. But I think we need to show benefits as members of ISOC, and I don't think we've done that very well. So I think we need to go back to an Amex kind of idea. You know, membership has benefits, so I think we may have to consider that.
Yeah. Thanks, Glenn. So there were a bunch of questions. I hope you guys took notes, and they need to be addressed by different people. So you want to start with Olaf?
I just start. Why not?
So Olaf, go ahead.
No, because I think that's exactly right. Both what Hiroshi said and what you said, we need to think about targeting. We need to think about how to be effective. As the global organization, so as global staff, we target the global landscape. I feel very strongly, and that's the collaborative security message, that there is an aspect of subsidiarity, that on each level where you can take action, you should take action. Low-hanging fruit might perhaps be go to your local community, ask them to turn on SPF, DKIM, DMARC for their mail servers. We have tools, we have things that can ignite that action. From the OTA perspective, we do the annual trust audit, which is now US focused, which we're looking at how we can get that a little bit more global. But that is reaching out to certain sectors, and that, for instance, also includes government sectors. That is a good bridge to the cybersecurity discussion overall. I had to say, Hiroshi, when you started talking, I had to sort of understand what type of cybersecurity discussion you were talking about. The GFCE is an outcome of the GCCS 2015 in The Hague, the Global Forum for Cyber Expertise. You missed 2 acronyms, and I'm using too many. The Global Forum for Cyber Expertise is really a methodology to create expertise and do capacity development. We are working on an MOU to have regional discussions with GFCE, and next week I'll be talking to see where we can have more alignments as an organization. I've been talking to the secretariat there, and we're taking this initiative approach here. First walk, then run. So we have something going on. There are many alignments where we see things that we've done in the past. Deploy 360, for instance, mapping fairly well into that space. So that is going well. In the context of another type of cybersecurity conversation, also the type of cyber security conversation that came out of GCCS in The Hague the first time, where it was really open, is the cyber diplomacy and cyber warfare conversation. We've been traditionally out of that, and in fact that's traditionally never been a multi-stakeholder type of discussion. As a member of the Global Commission for Stability of Cyberspace, and by getting involved in the GGE process a few years back, we're trying to explore what we can do to open up that conversation to a more multi-stakeholder environment. But that is a completely different set of people than we used to talk to. Completely new audience, so also first walk, then run.
Let me just add to that, that we heard from PIR that the Internet of Things is the cause right now, or at least a leading cause of just the attacks that are coming. So I have concluded as we work through this that this is a good point of entry for us, Hiroshi, on the cybersecurity side, because if we just look at what where those attacks are coming from, it's very clear that those devices are it's like putting guns into the environment and letting them shoot. And I think we can do something about that, and we have it's a focused way of getting into this conversation.
And so, I wanted to add, because you made a specific remark about the stare when you talked about manners. That is exactly the reason why we're trying a different approach, trying to create a different message. And for those who were at the OMAC meeting, we basically said we want to approach OMAC meetings when we have new messages to test them out. When we find new target audiences where we can be most effective, and we need to prioritize this all. It's all part of the planning. Then we need to test that and figure out how to approach best. Yeah.
And then I would just acknowledge on the civil engagement. Sally, did you want to say something on that?
Sure. Very quickly, I think, Glenn, you were spot on that multi-stakeholder governance is not just for the lofty national level, that we would be delighted to see implementation and work on this at any level of government. We think it has relevance and use all up and down the governance chain. So yes, absolutely.
James, please.
Yeah, thank you. Glenn, I just wanted to address your first point because I think it's an important one. You mentioned that ISOC Strong, or Internet Society Strong, has morphed into Shape Tomorrow. That's partly true. I think we can think about ISOC Strong as something that was probably more internal to us, that we used as a reference and framework for building our communications ability, strengthening our membership, building some of our internal process. Much of this has been driven by Todd and myself. And what we have now is really something that goes to our purpose as an organization. So you're absolutely right. Shape Tomorrow is much more of a constant, and there are many, many ways in which we can shape tomorrow. I feel as though this is something that we can continue to have in place as we go through all of our campaign work, and even as those campaigns rotate out and shift, and our focus changes over time. So it's very much more longer term, and it's strategic, and it goes to our purpose as an organization.
Okay, thank you. So now I think there were interesting discussions. We're gonna move into closed section now, executive session, so that because
Yes.
you are done with the presentations.
Yeah. We need a bio break.
Yeah, we can do a bio break in an executive session. That's not a problem. Oh, you didn't have your comment. Oh, sorry about that. So yeah, Haris and yeah.
Very quickly. So thank you very much for the presentation. That's good. I was looking at the SIG, the guidelines for creating and running a SIG. I don't see how SIGs. I'm looking at the charter right now in terms of how you set it up and all that. There isn't an exit clause for a SIG. So when do you say a SIG has to be, maybe it's time to shut it down or, morph into something? I mean, there is some wording around that, but the reason I'm asking is because in Singapore, we have the Singapore Computer Society with a lot of SIGs as well. So for all the SIGs, if you want to start up, if anybody wants to start up an SIG, you formulate a charter very quickly and define it and then gather X number of people and carry on. And you're given 2 years. So every 2 years we review. So if it is okay, is it still value? Is that still interest? We renew for another 2 years. And so we have that renewal process, which forces everybody to reassess what you're trying to do. Whereas here, there is a phrase that says a permanent SIG exists until its charter is withdrawn by ISOC or otherwise expires. So it is kind of like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it carries on. So I think it may be useful to consider some form of a look back to say, okay, do you want to do it? So a deliberate attempt at a review so that at least we can close it off if it doesn't need to be there. So that's my comment there. So thanks.
Thank you, Haris. Raul, you want to address that quickly?
Yes, exactly. Okay, I'm in disadvantage, Haris, because you are reading the charter and I'm not at this moment. But one of the innovations, exactly when we created this concept of SIGs, one of the innovation is exactly that those are temporary groups, and previously the chapter, the thematic chapters were created forever. And now I don't remember if this 1 year, 2 years, but there is a period where the SIG is evaluated to see if there is a reason for continued existing. And so we will not have special interest groups that are not getting traction or are not producing something that get the attention of the community. And we will not have just those special interest groups forever. That's the idea.
Okay, perfect. So now we're gonna go into executive session. So we will be between 30 and 45 minutes, I guess, and then we will be back to basically get the finance committee report after that, and then we will go into the resolutions. We are resuming the session open to observers. It's point number 14. So Sean is gonna give us a quick update on the finance committee report.
All right. Thank you. I submitted this to the FinCom mailing list. We talked about it briefly in the executive session. I'm going to read it now and then provide a document to Kevin later, which we can publish publicly. We haven't done that in the past for a little while, but we're going to do that this time, so it's a little more transparent. The FinCom held multiple meetings led by our CFO, Sandy Spector, to review the Internet Society Action Plan Financial Plan for 2018. Key takeaways for 2018 include the funding sources will remain consistent. PR funding will increase to about $34.6 million. Other sources will decrease to about $8 million. This is based on a lessening reliance on grants and a more realistic IATF budget. 5 requests totaling $5.1 million from board designated funds for enhancing technology, digital asset creation, beyond the net, multi-stakeholder project, and Diamond Key security, which we're going to talk about later. ISOC's net IATF contribution will increase to $3.3 million, and the Internet Society's headcount as measured as FTE is expected to increase to 117.5. Thank you. That's it. Did I do something wrong? What did I read?
Sandy.
Just for a point of clarification, it's $3.1 million, not $5.1 million.
Apologies for the typo.
I was like, "Ooh."
Okay, perfect. Any questions or comments on that? Okay, thank you, Sean. Okay, so now we're going to be moving to the resolutions to approve the proposed budget, and we're going to have different resolutions because we want to basically, be very explicit when we are spending money on what. So we will have actually 5 resolutions: one for the general budget, and then the other for board designated funds, basically, which we allocate by board resolutions, and they're going to concern the Beyond the Net program, Internet Society branding, enhancing technology for the Internet Society, and the multi-stakeholder project. So Kevin, if you could put the resolutions up there.
The first one is here, and then I'll pull up the others.
Okay.
This is the approval of the budget and plan.
Perfect. So John, you want to read the resolutions or we can?
They're on the screen.
They're on the screen. Okay, so everybody is, can read them on the screen. And so we basically need, to move the motion, second them, and then we will be voting by roll call because per our, rule or history, when it comes to money, we do roll call resolutions, so they will take a bit more. Okay, so starting with the budget, somebody would like to move? So Alice moves, Hans-Peter seconds. So this is resolution number 15 there on the agenda. And as usual, I'm going to be asking every trustee starting with Glenn and going in this direction. Okay, so John has the order, our secretary. So I will start with Walid, then Glenn, and then I will go around. And every trustee has 3 possibilities: voting yes, abstain, and no. Any questions on that? Okay, so Walid, we start with you. Please go ahead.
Yes.
Glenn?
Yes.
Hans-Peter?
Yes.
Alice?
Yes.
Hiroshi?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Gonzalo? Yes. John?
Yes.
Desiree?
Abstain.
Richard?
Yes.
Olga?
Yes.
Harish?
Yes.
So the resolution passes with 11 votes in favor and 1 abstention. So I wait just a few seconds while John is capturing all the votes. Okay, so moving on to point 16 on the agenda, which is the Beyond the Net program. So Kevin, if you could have the resolution up there. If you could increase the size a bit, that would be useful. The font size.
There's a slider in the lower right.
See, if you go to the bottom right part of that's like the zoom, the bottom right. Oh, this is a different window. Okay. Oh, okay. So I see it's not. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. That's good. Okay. There. Okay. So please, everybody, read the resolution, and I will ask for a motion in a second. Okay. So who would like to move? Olga moves. Glenn seconds. And the same procedure, yes, no, or abstain, and the same order. So Walid, please go ahead.
Go ahead. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. No. So for the record, I will say who you are, and yeah. So
I can only type so.
Yeah. So Walid voted yes. Glenn.
Yes.
Hans-Peter.
Yes.
Alice.
Yes.
Hiroshi.
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Gonzalo, yes. John?
Yes.
Desiree?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Olga?
Yes.
Harish?
Yes.
Okay, so the resolution passes unanimously. As you know, I'm very much into efficiency, but it's like John cannot type that fast, and in this case it was easy, but when you have different votes, it's a challenge to capture them. Okay, so moving to Kevin, if you could put the next resolution up there. Okay, it's there. Thank you. So point 17 on the agenda, the ISOC branding, the same procedure as before. Please take a few seconds to read the resolution. Okay, somebody would like to move? Hans-Peter moves, Hiroshi seconds. Okay. And the same procedure. So yes, no, or abstain. So Walid, please go ahead.
Yes.
Glenn.
Yes.
And Peter.
Yes.
Alice.
Yes.
Hiroshi.
Yes.
Glenn. Sean.
Yes.
Gonzalo, yes. John.
John, yes.
Desiree.
Yes.
Richard.
Yes.
Olga.
Yes.
Haris.
Yes.
So I think it passes unanimously, right? Okay, perfect. Moving to point 18 on the agenda. So Kevin, if you could put that there. Okay, thanks. So again, please take a few seconds to read the proposed resolution. Somebody moves. Okay, Haris moves. Richard seconds. And now that you know the procedure, so please say your name and what you vote, so I don't have to work as hard. So we will start with
Glenn, yes.
Hans-Peter, yes.
Alice, yes.
Hiroshi, yes. Mr. Turner, yes.
Gonzalo, yes.
John, yes.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's, I could hear myself.
Okay, so John voted yes.
Desiree, yes.
Richard, yes.
Olga, yes.
Harish, yes.
Okay, so the resolution passes unanimously. I like this system, actually. Better than the other one.
I'm waiting for Marcelo, yes.
Yeah, that would be even more confusing. Yeah. Okay, so if we can put the next resolution there.
This amount says 825. I think I heard somebody say.
Yeah, I said, yeah, in the executive session, I said 815, then I was corrected by 850, but the correct amount is 825. Yeah.
Okay.
So thanks for catching that. Yeah. I knew it was, I mean, yeah. Okay. So please take a few seconds to read the resolution again. So that's point number 19 on the agenda for remote attendees. Okay, so somebody moves. Alice moves. Hans-Peter seconds. And then the same procedure, yes, no, or abstain. So we start with Walid, name and vote. Walid,
yes.
Glenn, yes.
Hans-Peter, yes.
Alice, yes.
Hiroshi, yes. Sean, yes.
Gonzalo, yes.
John, yes.
So John voted yes.
Desiree, yes.
Richard, yes.
Olga, yes.
Harish, yes.
Okay, so the resolution passes unanimously. For remote attendees, John is typing, so he cannot turn on and off the mic. So that's why I repeat his votes. Okay, so basically the 5 resolutions that, you know, together they make up the proposed budget pass. We will have more resolutions in the future I mean, like after lunch, that they also have to do with budget, but this is the main part. So I think a round of applause is, you know, appropriate. Okay, so Kathy wants to say something.
Thank you on behalf of the staff, on behalf of all of us who do the work every day. We want to thank you for the amazing cooperation we've had in preparing this budget and this plan, and for the confidence you have expressed to us today. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. So, well, I can talk while Kevin puts it up. So as basically the community know, we had basically, I mean, we've been working on updating our, yeah, this is perfect, Kevin, thanks. We've been working on updating our mission statement, well, mission and vision statements for a while. We sent a proposal to the basically community for preliminary feedback. We got preliminary feedback, and we've been basically discussing with all parts of our community until we have gotten to this point. So what we decided was that basically the vision and the vision statement, they remain unchanged. because we got a lot of support from the community, and we didn't see the need to change that. Regarding the mission statement, as we have said several times, we are not changing the mission. We are just refreshing the mission statement. So this is the result of a lot of interactions, feedback from the community, discussions within the board, with ISOC staff. Also, we had a facilitator, a couple of sessions, helping us come up with this. And I think this is something that, it's really important to basically set the direction of the organization, basically, of ISAC. So this is actually an important milestone for any organization to have a new mission statement. So we're going to actually vote the resolution using a roll call vote. So as before, we will actually go first to Walid and then to all of us, and I will be asking you to say.
I should say, I should probably say what the resolution is, since we haven't said it in open session before.
So let me give the instructions, and then we will move in and go there. So basically, we will be as before and saying your name and your vote, and we will go around. And now, John, please, if you can introduce the resolution, that'd be perfect.
Yes, this is Resolution 2017-XX. Approve the ISOC mission statement. Resolved that the Society's mission statement is, followed by the text below the dotted line that we see on the screen.
Okay, thank you. So that's the resolution. Kevin, do you have any comment?
Just making sure you're going to move and second.
Yeah, that's what I was doing. So who wants to move? Okay, so Sean and Alice seconds. Don't move too much. Okay, so as I said before, we're going to do a roll call. So please state your name and your vote, starting with Walid, then Glenn, and going as before. So Walid, please go ahead.
Walid, yes.
Glenn, yes.
Hans-Peter, yes.
Alice, yes.
Hiroshi, yes.
Sean, yes.
Gonzalo, yes.
John, I abstain.
Desiree, yes.
Richard, yes.
Olga, yes.
Harish, yes.
Okay, so the resolution passes with 11 votes in favor and 1 abstention. And again, I think this is an important milestone. So, a round of applause, I think it's... Okay, excellent. Thank you. Okay, so moving along to the last resolution of the day, if I'm correct, because point number 23 on the agenda, we already approved it yesterday. So we are going to point number 24 on the agenda, which is the Diamond Key Security Funding Proposal. Okay, so Kevin has put up there the resolution. John, do you want to read it or introduce the resolution, or maybe at a high level?
Yeah, we have done some funding for Diamond Key in the past. This resolution completes the funding, and it should allow them to do all the stuff that they plan to do.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on the resolution before? Okay, so somebody moves. Hiroshi moves. Hans-Peter seconds. Okay. So again, this is about money. We're going to do roll call again, as we usually do with resolutions related to money. So exactly the same procedure. You can vote yes, no, abstain. Please state your name and your vote. So Walid, please go ahead.
Walid, yes.
Glenn, yes.
Hans-Peter, yes.
Alice, yes.
Hiroshi, yes.
Sean, yes.
Gonzalo, yes.
John, yes.
Desiree, yes.
Richard, yes.
Olga, yes.
Harish, yes.
Okay, thank you. So the resolution passes unanimously. Thank you. If you guys...
And thanks for your preparation and your patience with us for the preparation.
Yeah, absolutely. So as part of the resolution, Olaf will take it from there, because we have just appointed him to the board of directors of DKS. You want to say some words, Olaf?
Yeah, thank you. And you'll be getting regular updates. So once a year, once half a year.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you, Olaf. Thanks. Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, that's the end of our official agenda. So moving on to point number 25, which is AOB. Anything else anyone would like to discuss before we conclude the meeting? No AOB? Okay, so hearing none, I move to adjourn the meeting.
Okay.
Anybody seconds?
I love this running joke.
We always have these discussions. Okay, so the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.